Well, hello there to all the good people of Ohio and beyond. This is Aaron Knapp, and you're tuned into Unplugged, broadcasting without permission. This is a place where the truth gets louder and we dig deeper, and where we always remember be lawful, not awful. If you want the full stories, the documents, the videos, and everything they don't want you to see, head on over to AaronKnappUnplugged.com, my new home for every investigation, every episode, and every update. And while you're here, be sure to like the video, follow the page, and hit subscribe. And share this with someone who needs the truth. We're building something real here. We're building something fearless. And we're doing it together. Welcome to Unplugged. Let's kick.
Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without.
All right. There we go. I got it figured out. Sorry about that. I think there was another mic on or something, and it was picking up that feedback. It's kind of weird. Never really kind of had that happen before, but we got it fixed, and we're back up on cue. So I do apologize for that slight delay. It was unfortunate. My first hiccup ever. Anyway, guys, welcome here on this soon-to-be snowy night. And we're going to get right into it because you guys had to be patient and wait. So setting the stage with all of this, I want to talk about a little bit about what happened with City Council, with Mayor Bradley, with the ADA stuff. And we're going to touch a little on, apparently I'm, again, popular with Mr. Tucker. And then we're going to finish up with talking about the new role of Mr. Graves in Sheffield Lake, moving to Lorain. So, and this didn't really happen with like a speech. Before we get into what appears to be on next week's agenda, which is going to be Monday night, we're gonna have a new city council meeting coming up this Monday night. And before we go into what appears on that agenda, I want to talk about what was said on the dais before we unpack, why the mayor suddenly feels compelled to issue a public statement to all of us, right? The mayor of Lorain about values, right? He wrote this letter and it's been sent to council. And we have to ground this conversation in reality, folks, because the situation did not begin recently. And it did not arise out of some sort of a misunderstanding between he and I. What's unfolding right now that you guys see, at least if you look at the city council agenda, did not start 2 weeks ago. It didn't start with a committee speech, a buffering live stream, or a technical excuse about the equipment, right? It began more than a year ago when I first notified the city of Lorain that I'm a disabled resident and the way that the city hall conducts itself during public meetings was creating access barriers, safety concerns, and predictable escalation risks for me as a person with a disability. I know you guys don't see it, and I mean, although you should, because all of you a lot of you have called me unhinged, crazy, all kinds of wonderful names, and that's great. But back then, it was funny because I gave the same kind of notice, and it went down the same way this time as it did last time. So last time, I was being yelled at by Joel, and he wanted me to sit down. Antonio Baez stood up for me, which was amazing. And then, you know, that's why I kind of felt bad about having to do what I did. But we set Joel straight on that. But then that behavior continued. And at the time, my attorney had advised me that I should file an ADA complaint, and he'd involved an ADA advocate, Jay Shore, who he works with a lot, who does a lot of ADA advocacy work. And I'd already had my ADA advocacy worship, like issues with the service dog. But I went in there and I said, hey, guys, like, here's all the accommodations I need. I need you to do this, this, and this. And I need you to stop yelling at me because I don't respond well to that. Now I get it. Nobody really responds well to being yelled at. But when we're looking at this scenario, I gave them notice that this was a problem that I'm working on, but I have issues with. I don't like being yelled at, called out for no good reason. Now, let's not talk about the fact that it's illegal under council rules, Robert's rules. We've talked about this in my other podcasts. Like, there's just no way around it. They have no business addressing the public in their meetings unless they're a party to that meeting. So when I gave them that notice, it wasn't casual or informal. It was literally, it wasn't even ambiguous. It was not a comment shouted from the gallery. It was not a social media complaint. It was written in an ADA Title II notice invoking federal civil rights laws and placing the city on a formal notice of its obligations. Now, under Title II Americans with Disabilities Act, once a public entity receives that notice, the law doesn't treat it as optional or aspirational, right? The city is required to engage in an interactive process to assess the reasonable accommodations that are required and to stop any practices that might have the effect of excluding, intimidating, or penalizing a disabled person for participating in what we refer to as civic life. And so in the grand scheme of things, the law doesn't require a disabled resident to wait until a situation becomes dangerous. It doesn't permit a public body to ignore notice and later claim surprise. And yet, that's exactly what happened. For more than a year, the city just continued the same pattern of conduct without offering anything other than partial acknowledgments, procedural deflections, and silence where corrective action was required. Now, the environment inside council chambers did not become safer or more predictable or more accessible. It actually became more tense, more confrontational, and more hostile, especially when my presence was treated as something to manage rather than, to accommodate. Same with me and Garen and others. It doesn't just go to me, right? And arguably, it goes to even people like Tia Hilton, to Jane Morales, to Aaron Knapp, to Garen Petty, to Patrick Horn, to anybody that gets up on that mic and speaks. Now, when we speak and we talk, that's when we're engaging with the council, and that's when they have the right to address us. That's when they have the right to not address us. That's when they have the right to, write our names in their little ledger in their book. And any other time, they don't. If you're part of the audience, like, we're just the silent people watching. That's it. And so as we get into the second ADA notice that I sent and the sudden discovery of the city's values, right? 2 weeks ago, after a year of inaction and escalation, I sent a second ADA notice to the city. Now, that one didn't come out of nowhere either. It was sent to it was not sent to manufacture some kind of conflict. It was sent because the conduct had intensified and because the confrontations had become more direct, right? So the problem being is this, the funny part about this is that when it went back, we go back in time to that year ago, Robert, my attorney, advised me the same thing back then as he did just recently. And I found that out because I went back in my emails to look, and you go back to the emails and you see, oh, look, I messaged Joel, I messaged city council and I said, look, I need these accommodations. You guys are being difficult. because it was right after I said, you guys can't just be yelling at me like that. Like, it's not okay. I'm not part of your meeting. And this was before I even really started engaging hard in the meetings. He was just establishing dominance and telling me to sit, Ubu, sit, right? Anyone that's not a police officer, please have a seat. And then it became this discussion and argument, just like the handicap seat in the front that he said was only designated for people that are journalists. And again, everything has to be an argument with them. So I had already sent this notice to Bradley a year ago, and I didn't remember I had done it because obviously it was a year ago. I knew I had said something to them, but I didn't realize it was an exact ADA notice and exactly it involved Jay Shore. Fast forward a year later, and similar conduct happens between me and Ray Carrion. And again, Robert's my attorney, and he's like, listen, man, you keep getting the same behavior time and time again. When are you going to stand up and do something right? So I talked to Jay, and Jay is an advocate for disabled people. And, he pointed out, rightfully so, that as an advocate myself, it's difficult to advocate for myself. And that I was kind of letting other disabled people down. But I mean, you are when you have the ability to advocate and you don't. But I just thought it was funny that it's the same process, right? Robert emails me, Jay emails me. This time I sent a second notice. So same thing, generated this notice, this ADA compliance notice. It's federally recognized. And that notice didn't come out of nowhere, like I said. And I didn't do it to manufacture content. I have to send this when they do that. I'd already warned them in writing about the consequences of continuing down this path. And they just ignored me a year ago. So that's why the second notice came after I was yelled at in chambers by Safety Service Director Ray Carrion when he held the floor. Guys, you can call it what you want. I know Patrick and other people want to say, oh, he did this, he did that. He doesn't have the right to address me. We addressed this in another podcast, Robert's Rules. You don't talk to me. It doesn't work that way. So that act itself disrupted the meeting far more than anything attributed to me. And it came after I was repeatedly addressed directly from the dais as an audience member, right? Despite not being subject to those council quorum rules or decorum enforcement absent actual disruption under Ohio law. It came after 2 members of the public were allowed to intimidate me openly while officials watched and did nothing. And it came while a federal lawsuit alleging retaliation and civil rights violations were already pending. So you had that going on. Then almost immediately after that second notice, the mayor, our lovely Mayor Bradley, and all his beautiful, wonderful self, he unveils this, what he called his value statement. So not an accommodation plan, right? No, it was not a compliance response, not a description of any sort of a corrective action he was taking. It was just a value statement. It's going to be read in our next city council meeting on Monday, which obviously I'll be at live recording because that's what I'm going to start doing now. I'm going to be the reporter on the scene. That's right, Frank. I was like, Gail Takanama here. So this value statement, I read it and this is right after he wrote that read that speech verbatim about me, basically my disabilities online during the last meeting, and council was trying to shut down the video feed. So he issued this value statement because I wrote this ADA compliance. Now, I could be wrong, but it appears the statement appears on the agenda with a single procedural instruction attached to it: receive and file. You guys know they love receiving and filing, right? And if you don't speak fluent City Hall, that phrase matters. When council is instructed to receive and file correspondence, it means the document enters the official record without discussion, without debate, without amendment, without obligation on the part of the city council to interrogate its content or reconcile it with reality. It becomes official artifact, number one, without ever being tested against facts, conduct, or law. The maneuver is not illegal, right? But it is effective. It is extremely familiar to anybody who's watched local government attempt to protect itself when scrutiny increases. They do it all the time at Lorain City Hall. They're real good at it. Like, letter from this person, read and file. Or no, basically just, what is it? No, receive and file. Yeah, receive and file. Thank you. And they do it all the time. They love it. So now we're going to get into live streaming, the ADA, and their convenient amnesia, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the need for live streaming, because this is where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore, right, folks? Like during the same period in which my ADA notices are being ignored or sidelines, members of council openly discussed eliminating live streaming altogether. They didn't want to improve it. They didn't want to fix the audio problems, not upgrade the equipment. They wanted to remove the live stream as if it were a discretionary luxury rather than an actual access tool. And that's what it is, folks. Rest assured, as a social worker who is disabled, I understand the level of an access tool that it is. That it allows people who are disabled, who can't make it to meetings, who are sick, who can't hear. I don't give a crap if they worry about, oh, but it buffers. And I know Garen always says, oh, it's conspiracy theory. Look, if you watch it the next day, you see it in its full form. Buffering does not change the content of the video. Buffering just means their internet sucks big balls. Because big balls in Cowtown will all go down. Big balls in Cowtown will dance around. Anyway, that's it. They have bad internet. And it takes a while and it buffers, and there's no secret conspiracy going on. Nothing's getting changed. Sounds like a great story, though. And when Garen says it, it sounds cool. I like hearing him go, look, it's buffering again. He's like, listen to me. They're probably talking about May and Aaron and other people, moles. All I know is they act like it's discretionary, and it's not, right? A lot of people use that. We all use it because we know we look at it afterwards. And I brought this up in another podcast I did in a story. I was like, Dan Nutt even said it best when they were talking about second use of devices, like their personal devices. And Dan goes, well, I guess if you get rid of live streaming, it won't matter, right? Because we can't watch, right? So the justifications offered, they're a little revealing. Council members stated that live stream is not technically legally required. And they're right. And then it costs money. And the residents can simply file public records requests that people should just come in person if they want to observe the government. What they don't really acknowledge is that the live stream has become a de facto accommodation during COVID, remains one of the residents with mobility impairment, sensory disabilities, and transportation barriers, chronic illness, and other conditions that make physical attendance unpredictable or unsafe. Once a public entity provides an accommodation that a disabled, people start to rely on, then it cannot just withdraw that accommodation in a way that has some sort of a discriminatory effect on it, even if that accommodation is not explicitly mandated in statute, right? And translated into layman's terms, that means they gave it to us. They can't just yank it away. If it'd be like if the government said, we're going to give you guys free hearing aids so you can hear. And then 6 months in, they said, they walked up to you like, I know you use these to hear, but sorry, no more funding. And they're like, sorry. That's it. They're taking away something from you, and they can't do that. I know you look at me, people are like, he's using it, he's this, he's that. Look, I'm definitely disabled. I'm just stubborn as hell. Have you not realized that? I don't want to admit it. It took me forever to admit it. It took me forever to start addressing the issues just like anyone else. We all struggle with them. We struggle with mental health. And for the record, if you struggle with mental health, I am a therapist. I know nobody believes it, but I am one. And I'm good when I'm actually in therapist mode. And if it's the holidays, if you're feeling a certain sort of way, if you're upset, sad, whatever, please reach out to someone, call 988, talk to a therapist. We all should talk to therapists. And regardless of what anyone wants to think, I'm not unhinged, but you should definitely see a therapist because these are good things for people. Mental health is a positive thing. So if you're feeling sort of down this winter, just know that I care about you. So Title II of the ADA prohibits methods of administration that have the effect of excluding disabled individuals, right? So regardless of whether the policy appears neutral on paper, replacing access with file a records request later is not really equivalent access, especially when the city itself acknowledges that the audio recordings are poor, incomplete, or unintelligible. And while the council members debated the cost and the conspiracy theories with, about This is what was funny is like they acted like we didn't know. Okay, so when you talked about the conspiracy theories and somebody that brings that up, there's only one person, that's Garen. And that I noted in my story. So that's who Mary was talking about. He was like, listen to me. And then I'm over here going, the mayor is talking straight to me. Like, you guys might have just left the room because the mayor is looking right at me when he's talking because he described my ADA complaint to a T. And I was like, wow, that's just fucking rude. I get it. You don't like me. I'm suing you personally. I'm suing your protege, Ray Carry-On, the guy you want to be the next mayor. Oh, you guys are like, oh, Mary wants it. Ray wants it. Bradley can't keep it. I want to vote for somebody that nobody expects, right? Like somebody left field. Like, who should we pick for mayor? And I need to figure out. There used to be a way I could see what you guys were all posting while I'm in here, but I'm trying to think who should we pick for mayor. Let me look real quick and see if I can see also what people are saying by looking. Let's see. New studio. No settings. It might be in settings. Let's see. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Bottom line is we got to pick somebody new for mayor. It can't be the same old, same old. Honestly, everybody always, oh, you lost. You did. Look, I just wanted to run. I wanted to know what it felt like. I thought it was cool. It was fun. It was great to get to know people. It made me really understand my ward that much better. And it made me realize how much work council people are supposed to put in for the little amount of money and time that they have. And how much time these current council people and council people of the past has spent doing things that aren't beneficial for the public, but more beneficial for themselves. And while they debated the cost and conspiracy theories, right, the mayor prepared his little value statement. Oh, for the record, let's just talk about the cost. It was later determined because Carissa Wytalk of the Chronicle News, and I will give them complete credit for their story because I do that unlike them, stated she asked them for the record how much it costs, and it's $6,600 a year to do it, store it, put it online, whatever. Grand scheme of things, they spent more than that just defending lawyers against me, against Garen, against Middlebrooks, against others. So 6,600 is nothing. And when you look at the access that they have right now, the mics, all this, I'm gonna be honest. I get it. Expenditures are tight. Money's tight. Sure, their cameras, all this stuff are bad. Look, I could wire you up a system and do it budget style. Granted, I get it. Maybe that's not your best option right off the bat. But think about this. What if instead of worrying about all this other stuff, you set up a nice little system where you had, everybody on a laptop and the laptop posted like a Zoom and the Zoom posted up like everybody. And then, you could, anyway. But these are issues that really don't matter because they're talking about money, right? All while in the next meeting, they're about to determine the auditor's pay, which can be like $129,000 a year. Like, they talk about the money that we can't spend $6,000 on something for the public to actually have videos, but we can spend all this money. We can spend, I think, $49,000 to equip 12 police cars or 10 police cars with Harris L3 radios. You guys know what those are, right? The L3 Harris radios or the CCI radios. The ones that we're not going to use anymore. Let that sink in. Just on a county level. But anyway, that's for another day. The timing's not accidental. The value statement's not insulation. It's not something that's like, the value statement is insulation, not compliance, right? They're trying to protect themselves. And what matters most about the mayor's value statement is not its tone, right? It's the function. Documents like this are not written in a vacuum. They appear when administration feels pressure and needs language on paper that sounds principled, while kind of avoiding the legal commitment. Nowhere in the value statement is there any mention of disability access as an operational duty. No reference to ADA Title II compliance, despite the city having received multiple written notices from yours truly. And I know others. Garen's mentioned it before. I know he jokes, get me a wheelchair, whatever. But look, guys, disability access isn't a fucking joking matter. You can say what you want about it, but I believe in it. Somebody who is disabled, who has access issues, who has a disability parking pass, who understands the access. I am a service dog that has made you guys from James McCann to law enforcement have made me feel uncomfortable to take my dog anywhere. So I don't. I'm uncomfortable going into City Hall. For a while, I was scared to go in my own government building. And I'm still not comfortable there. That's why I ask for these accommodations. And I've asked for multiple, times to say, hey, let's do this. As have others. Even when Garen brought up once, there was a woman, and I know if I had the chat open, he would say it out loud. But basically, what it said was, let's just see. Oh, yeah, never mind. He said that he was making a comment about, this, that, and the other. And I was like, okay. And basically what happened was he said another resident said, hey, yeah, I think that would be a good idea, Mayor Bradley. And they were talking about disability access. Now, it's no secret. City Hall is not ADA compliant. That place is, as a social worker, that place scares me. Okay, you have one ramp out front, which is just a little handicap dip. Beyond that, you guys don't have anything that's really ADA compliant in your building. You don't broadcast your meetings on something that would be considered ADA compliant for the hearing impaired. Your building is completely sloped floored. You have no handicap access. The one you do is in the very front, and it's a black chair that's supposed to be comfy. I guess that you can move if someone in wheelchair access needs to get there. And Joelle rushed me out of that chair one day for sitting in it because apparently unseen disabilities are okay to discriminate against. But, what I would like to see and what I'm going to ask for and what I'm hoping that my advocate will work with me on is that I'd like to see this. And I know whatever. I know we can't get everything fixed in City Hall. And I know they're going to say they're grandfathered in, but they're not. Because here's the problem. Anytime you've done internal work and structural work on the building to improve it, then you suddenly have those sections become party to modern building codes. I mean, just recently you approved money to have the outside of the police building painted. So you're doing that. You're making structural changes inside. You're adding doorways and doors to the clerk's office. You're upgrading and updating procedures all the time in this building. So for you to claim that you're grandfathered in now suddenly under ADA access kind of seems a bit preposterous. So if I were, and I am a social worker with ADA understanding, even though the advocate, Jay Shore, is much more knowledgeable in this area than I am. Honestly, when we were talking our first time, he was like, really, why do you need me? You're an ADA advocate yourself. And he's not wrong. I mean, at Rockin' on the River, they called me the dog guy 5-6 years ago. Even though certain podcasters in this town and bar owners want to call me an outsider, I helped get dogs permitted access to Rockin' on the River, especially service dogs. People sometimes just don't understand. And I get it. And no one understands what I'm doing. Nobody does. Nobody really does because they go, you attack both sides. No, I don't attack both sides. I attack decisions that are wrong. I attack actions that are wrong. I go after a reason. I have a moral code. I'm going after and trying to strike down things for moral reasons. It doesn't have anything to do with the individuals. I don't hate any of these people. I don't hate Tucker. I don't hate JD. I don't hate Jack. I don't hate Solo. I don't hate Tia Hilton. I don't hate Aiden Vogel. I don't hate anyone. I don't hate anyone, period, other than maybe myself. Because that's the thing you guys fail to realize. I'm a therapist. I get more than most people do when it comes to the brain. Our own worst enemy is always ourselves. Nobody dislikes you more than you. Go look in the mirror. And I'll give you a little free therapy on that one. Just that's the problem, is that you assume everything's about you because you make it about you. Could it be that nobody gave a crap? Maybe. But right now it is about me, right? I'm putting that pressure on this administration. I'm putting the pressure on them as a disabled person that they ignored in the beginning. Of course I didn't. I sent them the letter, but I didn't push hard because nobody with disabilities does that. It's embarrassing when you were a fully functional human being before, circumstances and service to your country made you a non-fully functioning human being. And then you worked really hard to go from somebody that they said would never work again and may never get off painkillers or be fully whole again to somebody that's clean of painkillers, somebody that's turned their life around, somebody that was going to be that was considered a homeless veteran, somebody that went on the HUD-VASH program, somebody that got housing assistance, that's somebody that turned their housing assistance into an ability to get an AA degree. And then they were like, well, when does this end? Well, I said, whenever I'm done. And I went to OSU and got my social work degree and my minor in drug and alcohol counseling. And then this chief of police comes out of nowhere and just fucks me. And then everyone else along the way fucks me. And I still don't hate any of you. Tucker, he posted videos of me online. He didn't give a shit about what that would do to me. Yes, you're right. So, Tucker, you didn't believe that in that moment that my ass beating was enough. You felt that you had to put it online too because you wanted your clicks, your likes, and that's fine. But nowhere in little Mr. Bradley's value statement is there any mention of my disability or any of the issues that I have going on, right? No. And it's an operational duty on their behalf. There's no reference to ADA Title II compliance, despite the city having received multiple written notices. No acknowledgement of the interactive process required by federal law. No recognition that the city has already been informed that this conduct is actually creating access barriers and safety risks, not just for me, but for others. No meaningful discussion of public participation beyond compliance and control, right? Sit, stay, Ubu. Good dog, Ubu. Participation is framed as implicitly as something that has to be managed rather than facilitated. And silence on access itself is like a value or a choice. Now, by instructing council to receive and file statements without discussion, what they do is the administration ensures that none of these omissions can be challenged in real time. The document gains procedural legitimacy while remaining insulated from any sort of public scrutiny. Later, when enforcement escalates or residents are removed or charged, like Garen Petty or whoever this other selective first person was that I don't know who they're talking about, officials will point back to that statement and say, see, we told you what we value over here. You just didn't listen. And this isn't an accommodation plan, right? This isn't not a compliance response. It's not even an answer to the ADA notices. What it is insulation, like a big heavy coat during winter. Keeps you warm, like the fat on a bear. Now we get to the next part here where we're going to go to Act 5, which is how the city treats me, not only in practice, and not just in practice, but in statements. At some point, value statements and their little words and their procedural language and all their carefully drafted correspondence stop mattering because civil rights are not violated in theory. They are not protected by aspirational language. They are violated or protected through conduct, through choices made in real time by these officials who have the authority and the discretion and who know exactly what they are doing when they exercise it. In the case of McCann, you guys can say what you want. He knew what he was doing. He did it on purpose. He told me he was going to fuck me, and he did. Difference is that I told him how this was going to end, and I made sure that's how it ended. I didn't lie. In the beginning, I can go find the fucking email to this day where I told James fucking McCann, yo, bro, listen, I get it. We're both alpha. Well, I'm an alpha and you want to be one. And you're over here going, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm a chief of police. And I knew you were writing my board, even though I couldn't get it at the time. I knew you were talking to other people, even though I couldn't get it. I got a little smidgen of it from the courts. And by denying me it, all you guys did was give me more time because the tolling clock stops. But I knew a bitch ass like you was going to do some backstabbing little bitch ass shit, right? Because that's what little bitch ass Coast Guards do. You had your kid, little Air Force guy come at me. Air Force kid is an SP. You don't think I don't have connections? I have people in the Air Force. They called and they told me, yeah, he works at this base. He's special police. I wouldn't worry. Why not? I mean, like he's online doing this, and this to me, and they're like, yeah, but he's in the Air Force and he carries a gun. And I was like, okay. They're like, oh, that's right, you were in the Army. I'm sorry. People that carry guns on our bases are usually the lowest of the low, right? They're security. We don't do guns. Remember, we live in like Air Force hotels and shit. Oh, my bad. Okay, cool. So he came at me hard, and I just told him, this is how it ends. You guys want to get mad at me, but this is some eye for an eye shit. I don't really care. Yeah, as Tucker would say, I keep coming at people. Oh, boo-hoo. Maybe you should have kept me off your radar. Maybe you should have never come at me. Maybe you shouldn't have posted footage about me online or talked about me as McCann did to my board. I mean, let's just get it clear. My board called me and goes, we just want to know what you did to make a chief of police figured out social workers were, that they had a board and how to get in touch with us. This fool was online, like he was asking questions like, shh. I looked it up and it says social workers are da-da-da-da. So why was he doing da-da-da-da? Ooh, McCann Googled it. He looked it up. So let us stop talking about what the city says it values and start talking about how the city behaves when I'm physically present in their chambers and others. I've been yelled at loudly and aggressively by the safety service director in a public meeting while he held the floor and while the meeting was live. And while the council president allowed it to happen, Demakia, without interruption or correction, right? In fact, you can clearly hear him and little Miss Springowski in the background. Ray, 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 Ray.
From all of our departments and assure that as part of our regular checklist that we have for many projects, that we can visit this. This is not a common area because we typically don't waive fees. So it's one of those areas that we'll revisit here as we move along.
Why do we?
Thank you, Mr. Carey.
Say something? Then why are we? Say something? Then why are we? You want to get an attitude? You work for me, Carry On.
Well, that's right. It was Joel that was president.
Yeah, get it. Do it.
Still did nothing, right? Did nothing. No interruption. He didn't correct it. Mr. Knapp, that outburst was not a response to me disrupting the meeting because there was none. What I was doing cannot be even considered a disruption under law. That can't be considered a disruption. Neither can criticism or certain things. Intent matters. And it was not an effort. There was no effort to restore order because order had not been lost. It was an assertion of dominance on behalf of the council, delivered from a position of authority, directed at a resident who had already notified that very city council that this kind of confrontational escalation creates disability-related safety concerns. Meaning, if you yell at me like that, I yell back. I match tone. If you want to be a motherfucker, I'm going to be a motherfucker back to you. Sorry if that hurts your little fucking feelings. I'm Gen X, and I'm broken. So if you don't like it, well, fuck off. So that's what they did. Directed at a resident who, again, behaves himself when not directly confronted. No warning was issued to him, to Ray. No gavel was used. No decorum rule was cited. They didn't do any of that. The incident was allowed to stand as normal. And then they tried to stop the meeting. They did all this. I've been addressed directly from the dais by council members while seated as an audience member, despite the fact that under Ohio law and Robert's Rules of Order, members of the public are not participants in the meeting unless recognized during public comment. That's it. Addressing a citizen from the dais is not neutral. It places the weight of the institution against an individual. And when it's done secretively, it becomes intimidation rather than governance. Those directives were not issued equally, right? They were not issued to every person in the gallery. They were not issued in response to equivalent behaviors by others. They were not issued, or they were issued directly to me, repeatedly, in circumstances where no actual disruption existed and where the conduct being criticized was indistinguishable from conduct tolerated when it comes to others. I mean, Jane has and Paula have scoffed many a times in the gallery, as have others, including Tia. Yelled from the back. I go one little thing to Garen, and suddenly everyone is on me like flies on stink, and Patrick Horn thinks he has the right to ride me like, his bride on the wedding night, even though he won't speak to me. Well, I mean, I guess that's typical. Like, you ride me like your bride on wedding night and then don't talk to me ever again. I get it. But come on, guys. Like, the same tolerance levels for other people's bullshit. And the second oh my God, Aaron breathed. Jesus Christ, right? At the same time, members of the public, they've all been permitted to engage in types of intimidation, verbal aggression, and targeted hostility towards me while I was seated in chambers, sometimes within feet of me, while officials watched and looked with no action. No warnings, no removals were considered. No effort was made to actually de-escalate or protect a resident who had already identified safety concerns tied to disability and escalation. So Tia gets to come in, and when she's supposed to be addressing counsel, she's addressing me. She cusses me out. She walks away. You guys do nothing. Ray Carrion yells at me, and you guys have to calm him down. And when you're done calming him down, Mary actually moves for a motion to suspend the meeting, even after everything had calmed down, and you guys all had to get up and pat Ray on the back because he was being a little bitch. And he got all mad. You say something? You say something? Adrian! Shut the fuck up, man. God, there's your little quote, Tucker. So this contrast isn't subtle, right? When authority figures yell, it's tolerated. And when other citizens intimidate, it's ignored. When I responded by asserting my rights, it's reframed as disruption. This isn't accidental. It's selective enforcement of decorum. The selective enforcement is how retaliation disguises itself as order. Outside of the meeting room, the same pattern continues. When I file public records requests, particularly those that expose internal coordination, policy inconsistencies, or legal risk, I'm delayed, denied, or forced into procedural labyrinths that the city really doesn't impose on others. When I challenge unlawful ordinances or raise constitutional issues, I'm not engaged on the merits. I'm treated like as an adversary, as if exercising my rights is in itself evidence of this bad faith. Now, when I assert my disability rights, the city does not respond with accommodation. It responds with silence, deflection, or moral language that avoids any obligation. The interactive process required by Title II is never meaningfully engaged. Instead, the city waits until pressure builds, until scrutiny increases. Then it issues a generalized statement that sounds conciliatory, but they change nothing, i.e. Bradley's bullshit statement. What makes that especially dangerous, though, is that it all occurs against this backdrop of this ongoing litigation that I have. There's already a federal lawsuit pending that alleges retaliation and civil rights violation. The city itself is not operating in a vacuum, and neither is Mayor Bradley. He knows exactly who I am, exactly what I've filed, as does Ray Carrion, and exactly what the legal exposure exists, right? That knowledge makes that pattern more troubling, not less, because it means these choices are being made with full awareness of their consequences. Basically, these assholes are fucking with me with your money. Okay, I get it. You guys don't like me. You're mad at me for this, that, or the other. But in the end, these government officials are like basically be like, all right, every time you punch Aaron, we're going to charge this guy over here 10 grand. So they punch me 10 times. At some point, you're going to be like, hey, fucker, that's my money. When are we going to get there? That knowledge makes the pattern troubling. More troubling, not less, because that means their choices are conscious and they're made with full awareness of consequence. My name is referenced constantly, even when it's not spoken aloud. I'm discussed as an issue, as a disruption risk, as a problem to be managed rather than a constituent entitled to equal protection and access. Meanwhile, behavior by officials that would unquestionably constitute or qualify as disruptive if performed by a resident or normalized, excused, or ignored. Mary just storms out of meetings. She don't give a fuck, right? That's okay. When she doesn't like the vote, she's just not going to vote, and she's going to storm out and throw a fucking fit. But God forbid one of us speak under our breath, right? I got you. I try to speak twice, and it's a problem. But your treasurer speaks twice, Soto, who's married to the chief of staff, and that's okay. I got you. Guerin goes back there, it's a problem. Everyone else goes back there, and they're invited. I got you. Now you want to just shut it off. That's fine. You guys are so scared of the public and so scared of your own shadows. But hey, that's cool. You keep doing you. All you that keep doing these behaviors that are unquestionably would qualify as disruptive if any one of us did it. And through all this, you guys don't do anything meaningful to intervene or protect access, right? You just intervene to protect yourself. Create more access issues. Oh, you got to have an appointment to go above the set. Fuck you. Why are you so important? Anyway, so when a value statement appears on the agenda immediately after the second ADA notice that I sent them, after escalating confrontations, after open discussion of eliminating live streaming, after and during federal litigation, and after Mayor Bradley sent me a letter asking me to respond to the law department to give them what I'd already given them a year ago and recently, and CC'd them on everything that I sent him was sent to Riley. He's asking me to send it again. Again. This isn't coincidence. It has to be as context, right? Because if values were the point, accommodation would have come first, not the letter. If access were the point, conduct would have changed. If compliance were the goal, the interactive process would have already been underway, but it's not. Instead, we're given a document to receive and file, right? While the behavior itself that made it necessary continues unchanged. That's how power works when it is more interested in managing the optics than meeting the obligations that's required. So this is kind of where we're going to shift a little bit from City Hall power to private platform application. And we're going to talk a little bit about what I laid out just happened inside City Hall. Under color of authority, with officials who are bound by law, duty, oath. What happens when power does not stop at the chamber doors and instead finds a second microphone, a private platform per se, an audience trained to consume conflict rather than context. Because what I've experienced inside council chambers, it hasn't stayed there. It's followed me outside the building, onto other people's podcasts, social media feeds, and across multiple platforms, and into a separate ecosystem where my name, my body, and my incident involving documented physical harm became and have become and continue to be reusable content. And that's where the madhouse gets in and they enter the story again. And I'm going to talk a little bit about them tonight just because they brought me back up recently because somebody sent them a couple of whatevers from me. But that being said, I'm going to take a quick break right here. We're at the 48-minute mark, it looks like. And I'm going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. Grab a quick drink, and we will be right back. So please stay tuned. And when we get back, we'll be in Act 6, where we talk about all of the new Madhouse information that I'm sure everybody's going to record and send straight over to them. Here at Unplugged with Aaron Knapp, we like to thank our sponsors. We have a few unofficial sponsors tonight, and they are definitely not paid sponsorships. I want to throw out there a big thank you to Joseph Jones and Eric Jones of the Lorain Daily and the Vermilion Daily. They have a local news page. You should check them out. They do plenty of great work broadcasting all the news that is the news that you want to have in Lorain and Lorain County. So check them out. Also, please, if you need any legal services, feel free to reach out to Robert Gargas. You can find him listed online. He's a fine attorney and comes highly recommended by yours truly. And last but not least, I want to mention D&C Radio. Please make sure you check out one of the up-and-coming internet hip-hop stations and all of their shows. They put on a lot of shows. You have the Never Outdone show. You also have the Eric Bowen show, Speak Up, Speak Out. So please make sure you guys check them out as well if you're looking for your latest and up-to-date hip-hop artistry. Thank you for tuning in. This has been a non-paid sponsorship brought to you by Unplugged with Aaron Knapp. Hey there, folks. If you really want to know what's happening in your hometown, the place to go is Lorain Daily and Vermilion Daily. From city council and school boards to local businesses, community events, and neighborhood stories, these outlets cover what the big media ignores. This is hyper-local news for real people in real communities. Visit Lorain Daily and VermilionDaily.com today. Read it, share it, support local journalism, because your community deserves coverage that actually lives here. Alrighty, guys, we're back. Thanks for waiting there while I refilled my bowl of beans and my drink. But we're in Act 6 here. This is when you moles want to get your cameras ready. Just send over to Mr. Tucker. But this part needs to kind of be grounded carefully because it's not about personal dislike, tone, or internet drama, right? It's documented conduct, repeated distribution, and the deliberate use of my name, my likeness, my own recorded speech across multiple forms for apparent gain. I get it. The Madhouse loves me. They like to talk about me. They make whole episodes about me, like entire episodes, multiple episodes across multiple platforms, multiple shorts. They live off my clicks. And the Madhouse podcast did not revive my name because of new facts, right? It revived it because I discussed the incident again, and I discussed a Facebook Messenger call that I received from a member of the Campana family, and that discussion circulated. Someone clipped it. Someone sent it to Tucker. He says it himself in the video, and then, of course, someone asked me about it, so, of course, I go look because I'm human, and Tucker opened his episode by stating that the video was sent to him and it annoyed him. And that matters because annoyance is not journalism, right? I'm not annoyed by his video. I am not feeling any annoyance. Annoyance is not a public duty, right? Annoyance is this emotional reaction. When irritation becomes the reason that you record, upload, or clip, or distribute, what follows in content creation is not clarification. It's just content, right? At that moment, a decision gets made. He could have ignored it. He could have verified what I was saying or what I was referencing. He could have identified which video was being discussed. Instead, he assumed the reference was about him, about his bar, and the Madhouse incident. He built an entire response on that assumption. And that's because there was, as he would say in his, he said, well, maybe he's not talking about me. Okay, you're right. What he said was, he started saying it like it was me saying it about him. And he said, well, maybe he's not talking about me. And I clearly wasn't. I was talking about something Angel's talking about. He said, there's another video of someone doing where I'm fighting in a bar, supposedly. But this one I've talked about. I went to this other place that everybody keeps talking about to pick somebody up with a friend. We went in at closing time. We're trying to pick this person up. And this guy got mad at me for wearing a Republican sweater and tried to fight me. And even people I know that saw that video talk to the owner and were like, yeah, there's no way we're releasing that. That guy attacked him, yada, yada, yada. But everyone keeps making it about me. And so I brought that back up, not the ass whipping at the Madhouse. Yes, I know that video is clearly online in multiple places and multiple formats. He made sure of it. And even though I was running for office, and even though I was in public, he uses that podcast for monetary gain, as I'm trying to do possibly with mine now, because he talks about like fees and whatnot. But he assumed the reference was about him and his bar and that incident. And he built this entire response on that assumption. I'm not going to play his clips because it would be doing exactly what I'm saying he's doing to me. But In the longer episode that he had, he briefly admits uncertainty. He states, I may have been referring to another incident and that I could be wrong. And that was good. But then that uncertainty is never resolved, right? There's no pause. There's no verification. The conversation simply proceeds as if the assumption is settled as fact. Like, I thought that, but yeah, okay, we're good. So that same assumption is stripped away from its qualifiers and repackaged into shorts where it becomes absolute video proof, case closed, right? That's how misrepresentation happens without anyone ever having to say an outright lie. From there, my name becomes the engine. The discussion stops being about facts and becomes about me and my character, my credibility, right? My motives, my tone, my reach, my audience, my views. He talks openly about engagement, compares numbers, frames relevance as competition, right? Those aren't straight comments. They explain why my name keeps being used, right? He knows these numbers, so he must be following me. I don't know his numbers. I don't know how many friends he has. I don't know if I have more or less than him. I don't know if I have more views than him because I don't pay attention to him. The only time I watched him was because of Amber. Amber went on his podcast. She begged me to watch it. I told her it was a bit traumatic for me because of him and what he did with my likeness, but I would watch it. And I watched her and I loved it because she was on it. And look, I don't even dislike Tucker. He's not a bad guy. He took an opportunity to use my likeness and my pain and my struggle to fucking promote himself. Cool. Great for you, bro. Don't act like you're doing somebody a community service by posting a guy getting his ass kicked when your bartender overserved him in your bar and then one of your buddies beat the fuck out of him. I mean, you guys can frame this however you want, but whatever. They're not straight comments. They're used to explain, why you keep using my name while accusing me of chasing clicks, right? You're actively using my name as clickbait because it actually performs. That's probably some of the best clicks you get. I mean, I think you got 21,000 clicks on the one video that you did of mine. That's well above your normal pattern. I know now because I looked. I didn't before. But that pattern doesn't stay confined to just one episode. Your podcast is distributed across multiple platforms and forums, right? You run full episodes, shorts, reaction clips, re-uploads. Your titles using my name. Your thumbnails are tied to my likeness. Your segments of my own podcast replayed on your show. My voice, my statements, my content lifted out of context and rebroadcast as fuel for your reactions. That distinction matters, right? Because my likeness, my name, one person's name, likeness, and recorded voice are used repeatedly across platforms for him to drive his engagement. That use stops being incidental news commentary and starts looking like strategy. It becomes resilience. In Ohio, that matters because factually in Ohio, they recognize that individuals have a protectable interest in their name, their likeness, when used for another party's commercial advantage. That advantage does not require a direct cash transaction. It requires maybe increased views, increased follows, increased reach, increased platform visibility, increased advertising value. Those are all forms of gain. He's on Spotify, for God's sakes, and using my likeness, my information, my name, my life, everything. That explains why he keeps using it. He keeps reappearing instead of, he said, that's that. He says, why doesn't he just leave it alone? Well, it's my life. If this were about correcting the record, calling me a liar, whatever, it would have stopped after one response. If it were about clarification, it would have been narrowed. Instead, it's multiplied, layered on top of another tactic that's been openly used and repeated. He calls me an outsider now. He states that, Aaron's not from here. I didn't grow up in Lorain, right? I don't belong to the same social networks. He contrasts me with all the people because, right, you guys all know each other. Y'all went to the same schools, shared the same parks. You belong. The implication is clear, right? Because I'm a framed outsider, right? That's who I am. I'm framed as an outsider. My claims can be dismissed without being engaged, right? I mean, that's why he uses it. That's why all you use it. So I'm suddenly bad because I've only lived in Lorain for 6 years, 7 years. Because I bought a house here and wanted to settle here. I'm suddenly a bad person. I get it. That framing is factual in the sense that he actually uses it. What's not factual is the conclusion drawn from it, right? Being labeled an outsider does not change what a video shows. It doesn't erase medical records. It doesn't justify force. It's a rhetorical move designed to shift the audience away from the conduct and towards my identity. Instead of asking whether the force was excessive, right? If Santa really did beat the living shit out of Aaron or not, the audience is invited to ask, Aaron doesn't belong. He never belonged here to begin with. Beating the shit out of him is the best thing you could do. Let's all join in fact. After we beat the shit out of him, let's call it up. Let's have people like T. Hill say, you can't prove it was me. I was at home. My cars were here. Documented. You can have all these people push stuff up online. You can have the chief of police put, I stand with Santa, and post pictures of my likeness with me getting drug out by Santa like it was some Looney Tunes. You guys all thought it was funny, and I'm sure everybody else did. It's cool. But it was designed to do something, and it did what it did. That's where the discussion of the incident itself has to be grounded, right? That you got, like, not you guys, but they repeated over and over the same phrase, right? He swung first. Aaron swung first. Aaron swung first, right? All right. Somehow I swung first, even though I'd already apparently been punched, according to them and the report and everything, earlier by these guys. And then I'm sitting at the bar calmly, my food there, people picking my food up, talking to me. I've already been apparently punched. Then I get thrown on the ground, then I'm getting kicked. And then I don't watch the whole video, but you see me getting drug out, and then you see me coming back in. And that's where they ground everything that his arm is up like this, like supposedly swinging, which honestly, I did see that part. Dude, I would have laid me the fuck out. Right? My arm's out here. Whack! Right? Just straight in. I was not in my right mind. You guys, all you had to do was just step aside and push me. I would have fallen right to the ground. Because you literally dragged me outside unconscious. You had an obligation. You should have called the cops, an ambulance, anybody. What if I just died there? What if that fractured skull had led to a brain bleed? What if I drove home and killed somebody? Again, beat the shit out of me. You can say what you want. Oh, he swung first. That Santa dude laid his 260-pound ass on top of me, wailed on me, and this guy's in pictures with other government people, and he's a regular there, so of course they're going to protect him. They said he supposedly worked there, Andy Vargovich. Dude whipped my ass, and I let him, because I don't have to go back through that trauma again of hurting somebody. Now he has to live with that, not me. I don't need to relitigate what happened that night before I came back in a second time for that phrase to fail. You don't need a backstory to evaluate excessive fucking force. You don't need a perfect victim to recognize a perfect beating. What the video shows is Andy Vargovich on top of me, right? Beating the living shit out of me. What the video shows is me being struck repeatedly by Andy. It doesn't, yeah, sure, they say I bit him and pulled his beard while he was apparently beating the living shit out of me. But everyone saw the video. What the video shows is blows being delivered while I'm on the ground. The viewers have seen it. The public's seen it all plainly. You can look back at everything else, but apparently they've looked back and seen me in the booth, and he was hitting me. I was on the floor. He was hitting me. As you watched, someone, like, they literally, like, Gito stood there literally and watched someone beat the hell out of me. He even said it in a podcast. One of my family members asked me why I stood there and watched an old man get beat. And they replayed that podcast again with my name, my likeness, everything in it. Fine, whatever. That's how people describe what they see. Cool. I get it. If you need clicks that bad and you need me, Tucker, clip away, baby. But it is technically illegal. I'm not going to go clipping your podcast and putting them in mine because that's your intellectual property and that's not okay. But I got you. I will watch it. I'll comment on it. You can comment on people's stuff. You can make statements that are critical of them, but using their content over and over and over again to drive your likes, your whatevers, that's problematic. And I don't even know why you care about why I mentioned Campana. You don't know what I have. And he is a big name here in this town, so I get it. So when someone like that, who's friends with the person that filed a restraining order against you the next day and claimed she had nothing to do with the ass whipping that you had just received and nobody could prove it, which was really weird. And friends with her after I'd been contacted by Castleman, then I was contacted by Campana. You don't know what happened, bro. So even if you accept the claim that I swung first when I re-entered the bar, that doesn't authorize the repeated strikes while I was down or pinned to the ground. There was no legal or moral or common sense rule that converted removal into punishment. Use of force must be proportional and must stop when the threat stops. And the damage did not end when the video stopped, folks. So take that into account. If I'm this drunk, if I'm this messed up and I'm drug outside, which obviously I was, if I'm unconscious, if I'm coming back in, your duty to protect me at some point has to kick in. At some point, you have to say, okay, this guy, he doesn't want to leave. Let's just call the cops. Let's get him arrested. This guy doesn't want to leave, or we beat the shit out of him and threw him outside. Maybe we should call an ambulance. Maybe we shouldn't let him drive home. Maybe. I mean, anything. There's this thing called the DRAM Act in Ohio, and it makes them responsible. I didn't know about it. My lawyer does. Other people do. Other people were mad at me for not doing anything. Because I've been told by government that they're a problem bar. I don't know. I don't go there enough. I went there for food. I wouldn't go there again even if I was allowed. But apparently they need me to sell their shows, because I'm not even going to go look, but I get mentioned more time in their shows, I think, than anybody else. They love them some Aaron. So in the end, I could show you the medical records of me, my face beat up, my body beat up. I could show you those photographs. I could show you the documented injuries that followed that night, my fractured ankle, my skull fracture. Oh, all of that happened just because those couple of guys they claim hit me once and then hit me twice. Suddenly I'm just soft. Okay. These records show things. They're existing. They show their timestamp. They're clinical. They were created by medical professionals whose job it is to document trauma, not participate in podcast narratives. The medical records do not care who swung first. X-rays do not ask who was annoying. Bodies tell truths in a way that repetition cannot erase. So let the sequence be clear. I discussed an incident and a call. That reached people. It annoyed Tucker. Because it annoyed him, he chose to bring me up again. He chose the reference he chose to assume the reference was about him when it was actually about that stupid offshore place. He did kind of sort of acknowledge that in the long form, but still went with it. He built a response on that assumption. He amplified it across multiple platforms. He reused my name, my likeness, and my own content because it reliably will generate engagement for him. He knows that. He gets way more. I mean, look, if he wants to prove me wrong, he can post his statistics. Post all of the videos where he mentions me statistically and all the videos where he doesn't, and see which one gets the most hits. I mean, that last video where he talked shit about me got 21,000 hits because somebody asked me, do you really get that many hits? Yeah, I imagine it did, because it included me. I mean, I get over 200,000 hits in 30 days. So 21,000 doesn't surprise me. Polarizing is what I would call myself. Whether you love me, like me, or hate me, you watch me. And that's why this is coming up again. It's why it's being discussed again, right? I get it. Hold on a second. Let me see what time it is. Oh, it's 1:14. You guys are about getting home from the bar now, aren't you? So for those of you getting home from the bar, I hope you're being safe. I hope you got home okay. But just know this. I don't dislike Tucker or his show. He did a great job for Amber, and I will look. I've said this 1,000 times. We can compliment, we can take away. What he did for Amber, great. He's not a bad person. I don't think he is. I think he got caught up in a moment, saw an opportunity to use somebody, as many people did, and he did. I get that. That doesn't make him a bad person. He wasn't involved in the assault. He had nothing to do with it. In fact, he was the only one involved in all this. Tucker had zero to do with any of this. He sold the narrative on behalf of Gito, on behalf of his friends, because these people acted on his behalf in the bar. That's what's the problem. they're not employees. If he employed somebody that was security or somebody that was as an employee that wasn't drinking, that wasn't being served as this person was that touched me. I mean, again, you can say what you want about what he did, what I did. You had two patrons who were imbibing alcohol all night long, and you had one of those patrons trying to escort the other one to the floor. That's why it's being discussed again. I'm not chasing attention, not because I refuse to somehow move on. I mean, technically, I haven't moved on because I haven't even looked at it. I won't watch the full video. I ignore the fact because I got pummeled, and it's one more time. Like where people think that it's okay to use physical violence against somebody because what? Because I said, I know the law? Fuck off. And this isn't because it's because irritation was turned into content on Tucker's behalf. Content was turned into distribution, and that distribution was built on a version of events that ignores what the video shows, what the witnesses observed, and what the medical records document. I never said I was perfect. I came out and apologized the next day. You know what I did? I drank apparently a shit ton of alcohol. Apparently I was being difficult and refusing to leave. I can't dispute any of that. That requires you call law enforcement to have me charged. And you would have done yourself a bigger favor that way. That would have been a bigger headline. Local candidate charged with disorderly conduct and refusing to leave and trespassing, right? While inebriated. Instead, you get, he didn't want to leave, so we beat the fuck out of him. You want me to whoop him? I'll whoop the shit out of him. And that's what happened. Because if you don't want to whoop him, there's somebody in that bar that will. Because the very next video, the first video they put out was of them dragging me out, and they played a music background, taking care of business, which they didn't have the rights to, with me being dragged out, taking care of business every day. That was actually kind of funny. I got to give you props for that. That was good. Like, he's like, when I can't do it, or the staff can't do it, the customers take out the trash. And he posted this online to make content, to get likes, to get videos. That's where it becomes illegal in Ohio, right? But okay, whatever. He wants those likes. My pain gets him likes. Cool, Tucker, I get it. You care about your little podcast so much that you look at my likes and compare my likes and my views to yours. I don't know who has more. I hope you do. You obviously need it more than me. I'm just telling a story. I don't care if people watch or not. It's my story. It's my words. It's my right, my story to tell. I like it if people watch. I like it if people learn and educate themselves. But my acts don't require likes. You don't have to like it. I want you to like it. Because if you like it or dislike it or laugh at it or hate it or whatever you do, it tells whatever massive little internet thing that goes out and tells the internet to do what it does to suggest me to your friends, to suggest my content to other people. Maybe people that think like me or think like you or don't. Even if you don't think like me, I don't care. I don't dislike you. I need you to balance me out. There are people sometimes go, all right, Aaron, like, okay, I get it. Right? None of us are perfect. None of us, me included. I make mistakes. But I make sure that when I'm speaking out loud, when I'm speaking to the public, when I'm making hard decisions about laws and governance and my stance on things, I think of all sides. But because irritation is turned into content, and content was turned into distribution, and distribution was built on a version of events that really ignores. I'm not saying I didn't do those things. I'm saying that they had no right to touch me. Why would I assume, even especially in that inebriated state, that somebody else had the right, a bar patron who I was sitting next to, who I honestly didn't realize was upset with me? I should have, but I didn't feel that. Grabbed me by the neck, and they said I slid to the ground. Okay, so I was just sitting there fine, and I just slid to the ground. No. That's not how it happened, folks. But somehow I become the attack of Mr. Madhouse again. So with that being said, I'm not going to mention him anymore. I'm not going to give him any more time. I don't need you guys to go look at his stuff. I did post those clips online, but he's talking about me again. If you want to watch his podcast, watch it. He needs the clicks. He needs the likes. Go over there. Check out his podcast, Madhouse Podcast, Madhouse Bar Talk. Like his podcast. Check it out. He does a lot of great bits for Amber. You should watch the Amber podcast. I encourage you to watch his podcast. In fact, I'm not going to put it online because I don't have permission. It's illegal for me to do that. Right now, what I'm talking about is criticizing what he said about me. But I'd never replay his podcast in a way that would be illegal or content stealing or, copyright violations like he does with me. And I definitely wouldn't continue to harp on a disabled veteran who got hurt. I wouldn't make claims that he's not really, maybe not that disabled, or just skip over it. I wouldn't make it seem like he's trying to shift blame. Because I'll say this before I move on to the last act and go away from this. I never shifted blame. I was at blame for going to your bar and thinking I was safe, Tucker. I was to blame for going to your bar and thinking I could drink in a bar and then go home. I was going to have someone come pick me up or call an Uber, which I live right down the street. I could have walked and got my truck. But instead, I got the living shit beat out of me because you said I wouldn't leave. And you said that that was the words of Gito and the guy who beat the shit out of me. All the people that had a reason to say something, I get you, though. I saw the police report. I did what I was supposed to do. We'll let that work its way through the courts. We don't have to worry about that. So I'm done talking about him. But again, if you want to see it, if you want to see more of Aaron Knapp get his ass beat, go to Madhouse Podcast. Check it out. Go check out Tucker. He loves to put my stuff up online. He's got shorts all about Aaron Knapp. And I think you should go check him out because he's actually a secondary outlet for all of my content. So, in fact, yeah, you know what? Go check out Tucker because he's sharing all my content. Check him out. Give him a like. Give him a follow. Give me a like and a follow. Like they said in iCarly, right? Like, hey, everybody loves two fights, right? If we're beefing, everyone's going to watch me. Everyone's going to watch him. So let's beef it up, folks. I know he's acting like he doesn't like me, but, he sends me all the dinner invites still. I'm just kidding. That's not what we're doing. That's just a joke. But I don't dislike Tucker or his bar. I like this food. I like this fish sandwich. I'm mad that they couldn't see this for what it was. I went there. I imbibed alcohol in an establishment that was close by my house that I liked, that I enjoyed eating cod sandwiches from until they switched to this other weird fish that I didn't really like, that he talked about. He did a whole podcast about that fish, and I watched. I was following it. But I became a problem when I started questioning Baez, and I started saying things on these podcasts he didn't like. It built up from there. Somebody walked by me in his bar one night, pointed at my sweater, and went, "How's that working out for you?" to my Republican logo. So I get where it comes from, and I'm cool with it. It is what it is. He has a bar to run and apparently a podcast to make money off of. I don't need likes or any of that stuff. I appreciate your likes. If you like it, great. If you share it, amazing. If you become a follower on any of my other platforms, super. If not, cool too. I know who watches. I know that you watch. Those things are act of openly supporting someone is hard for a lot of people, and I don't expect anyone to do that for me without some sort of a buy-in, right? I've given you no buy-in. Why would you buy into me without actually me doing your story? Some people buy into me because I've done their story. And for the record, before I get to this next part, I'm just going to say to everybody out there, if I'm doing your story, and I've been doing, there's a lot of you in my inbox, a lot. Oh, God. And I'm sorry. I know I tell some of you like a couple times, I'll get to it. Nikki is my friend. And I just wrote her story about the Judge Glass thing. And she's been sending me documents for, I don't know, 6 months. And I've been documenting, not ready to do it because ADHD does that. So for those of you that are in my inbox, for all the people that have contacted me, and then there's like 13 of you that I have to get back to, I apologize. I'm sorry. I will get back to you. That being said, we're going to get to our star story of the night, the Act 7, before we get to the end here, the Graves story. When they started turning that private platform into where government power starts to leave off, right? We've got this news story building with Fogel, Sheffield Lake. And up to this point, everything you've heard has involved people acting under color of law inside a public building, bound by statutory duties, constitutional limits, formal accountability mechanisms, even those mechanisms that were ignored or manipulated. The Graves story did not replace that record. It kind of extends it. Because once a person is framed inside the government space as a problem, as a disruption, as someone whose presence itself requires management, that framing does not remain confined to City Hall. It becomes mobile. It becomes reusable. It becomes a private thing that actors can use to pick up, reshape, amplify without any use of restraints that the public office is supposed to impose. So what happened next did not get It didn't involve a gavel, a committee vote, or a rules packet, right? It involved repetition, narrative control, and the use of different kinds of information to cause physical harm as reoccurring material across platforms. The Graves story matters here because it shows what happens when institutional signals are echoed by private platforms and when escalation is rewarded, verification is optional, and the person at the center of this narrative is treated as content rather than a human being with the actual documented record. And this isn't a detour from the ADA story, right? It's what follows when access is denied. Conduct's reframed, and accountability is replaced with amplification. That's where it goes next, right? From process to narrative, how systems offload accountability. We're going to get into this grave story real quick. But before we do that, I'm going to pause for station identification just real quick, and then we'll be right back. If you own a business and you want to reach customers right here in Lorain County and Vermilion, this is your opportunity, folks. Advertising space is now available in Lorain Daily, Vermilion Daily, and DNC Radio. That means your business can reach local readers, local listeners, and a highly engaged community audience. And here's a bonus. For a small add-on fee, your business will also be advertised once per episode on my podcast, Unplugged with Aaron Knapp, as long as your ad remains active on one of those two platforms. This is web exposure plus podcast exposure in one package. If you're interested in advertising, contact me now to reserve your spot through Facebook, email, or reach out directly. Ad space is limited and local visibility matters, folks.
Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with Nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise.
All right, thanks, guys. So what the Graves story illustrates here is, when placed in proper context, is what happens after institutions stop engaging problems through process. Instead, they allow them to be managed through like a narrative. Because the narrative is easier to control, right? We all figured that out. Tucker knows it. Everyone knows it. It's easier to redirect. It's far less dangerous to those in power than compliance, right? Inside government, there are supposed to be guardrails. Notice triggers duties. Complaints trigger review. Escalation is supposed to produce correction. And when those systems work, conflict narrows. Facts matter. Outcomes are governed by law rather than perception. Take, for instance, Aiden Fogel. But when those mechanisms are stalled, ignored, or deliberately delayed, pressure does not disappear. It accumulates. And when that pressure accumulates without release, what happens? You guys know. It blows. Systems will look for other ways to relieve it. Kind of like when you don't take care of your partner. People cheat. When you don't take care of your constituents, they're going to leave you. One of those ways is displacement, right? Rather than resolving the issues, the underlying issues, the intention is always redirected somewhere else, sideways, rather than addressing the conduct that focus or shifts to that credibility. Rather than correcting their behavior, the conversation always becomes about tone, personality, motives, and intent. The original problem is never solved. It's always reframed. Reframing allows institutions to appear responsive while remaining basically unchanged. It's not accidental. It's adaptive. When institutions no longer want to deal with an issue or you through a formal channel, they'll allow it to migrate into informal ones where the rules are looser, where the standards are lower, and where accountability is easy to diffuse, right? And that's where private platforms become useful. Private platforms like mine, like the Madhouse, like others, like Katie Byer, like anybody else running a private platform, like DNC Radio, like even technically, the Lorain Daily and them are a private platform, but they're a news platform. I feel like they're more public. They're not bound by open meeting laws and are subject to public record statutes or have any document. Like they don't have to document their decision making though. They don't have to engage in interactive process. They're not required to escalate or de-escalate or be proportional or recognize their claims or reconcile their claims with evidence. They're free to speculate, repeat, exaggerate, editorialize, and they are rewarded for doing so. Now, I will say in the case of Lorain Daily, all those things, while they may be true, they also are a very solid newspaper that always looks to tell both sides, right? There is typically in their stories, I never see a side. I don't see, in fact, they barely do editorialization. It's usually other newspapers doing that. They just report the news that is the news that is the news, and that's it. All the news that is the news with Gary Gnu. But most importantly, these private platforms, they benefit from controversy, just like me, in ways that public institutions can't openly acknowledge. I'm going to benefit from engagement, not resolution. It's the metric. Escalation, not correction. It drives visibility. And once that narrative takes hold, it can do work that the official silence can never do, right? Jack Hall once said it, your best asset is your social media voice. And he's not wrong. He's utilized that. I mean, you guys say what you will about him. I may hate what he's done, but I love the man. And that's where my problem tears at me. But he has utilized social media like nobody. The man's done it well and done it right. And once that narrative takes hold, he knows, like anyone else, it can take and do the work that silence cannot. So the institutional silence will always create a vacuum. And the narrative that you sell will fill it. And oh boy, it fills fast. So the greatest story sits squarely in that space, right? Everyone was asking me a couple days before, and it's not a big deal to me, even though I know who he is. I figured the Chronicle would get the story first, and they did, and they sold it. That they released it that way because they want it to be sold in their narrative. We don't want to really reflect the constitutional issues with it. It reflects what happens when unresolved institutional issues are carried forward, not through official action, but out of repetition, right? Framing, amplification. It's not about one conversation or one platform. It's about how ideas travel once they're no longer constrained by that process. And there's power. That's where that power retreats without disappearing. You don't see it anymore. It's shadow. Formal accountability is avoided, but influence remains. Obligations are left unmet, right? But perceptions of that is managed. The institution stops speaking, and others speak for it. Moles, as Garen calls them, often more aggressively, often with fewer facts, and often with greater reach. The result is a parallel system of accountability in which narratives do not work that laws the way the law is supposed to. And that's why this matters. And I want to point this out, because at one point I was that media machine for Jack Hall when it came to Resendez and others. And I've since recanted a lot of those issues that I came across because I was unaware. Because as Tucker points out, I was an outsider, uneducated on some of these things. I have educated myself on a lot of things. And I understand one thing, both sides are equally out for both sides. They don't give a fuck about the people. Democrats, Republicans, they don't fucking care about you. None of them do. Yeah, I get it, Tucker. I post a lot of shit on my page because a lot of people come here for information. And I help a lot of people out that you'll never see, that I'll never talk about, that I won't share. All you know is your little corner of the world, your little bar, your little one night of when you and your friends got to beat the shit out of me and you got to use it for fucking content clicks instant. Congratulations, bro. I don't care. I know you want to go online and go, oh, if you don't want to get video calls, just block them. No, I shouldn't have to block someone I don't know from video calling me. Campana video called me, just like Castleman messaged me and others did on Tia's behalf, because they're all simps. I don't want to give a shit about your power, what you're talking about when it comes to power. I think Campana's a simp. I think he's probably been, from what I've heard, pineappling it up. So you guys do what you want. I don't care. He's your friend. He's your buddy. I get it. You want to talk shit. Do what you want to do. But that's why it matters, because once accountability is offloaded into that narrative space, it's going to become harder to correct, not easier, right? Claims are hardened through repetition. Assumptions replace evidence. Framing substitutes for fact. Over time, the original obligations that started the entire sequence, the notices, the duty, the legal requirements, fade beyond the background. And while the story itself about the conflicts takes the center stage. And at that point, the question is no longer whether the system failed at the beginning. The question becomes whether the system is now relying on that failure as a strategy, allowing unresolved obligations to be eclipsed by narrative management so that what comes next can be justified without ever having to fix what went wrong. But when the narrative replaces the law, consequences will always follow. Once accountability has been displaced by a formal process in the narrative space, the damage does not stay abstract. It shows up in how decisions are made, how risks are calculated, and how people are treated. And because when the law is replaced with story, outcomes are no longer constrained by evidence or proportionality. Again, outcomes are no longer constrained by evidence or proportionality. In a functioning system, unresolved issues will narrow over time. Notices will trigger responses. Responses will trigger corrections. Corrections reduce conflict. That's how it's supposed to work. That is how the law is supposed to work every time. But when institutions refuse to resolve their issues at the process level where I've been coming from, the opposite happens. The conflict widens. The stakes rise. The narrative begins to do what work that the law was designated to prevent. That's where harm becomes predictable. That's when credibility becomes the battlefield instead of conduct. That's when the threshold for action drops. Decisions are justified by not what is proven, but by what feels plausible or good. Responses are driven by reputation rather than rule. Well, he's an asshole, so he can be right. And once that shift occurs, escalation becomes easier to rationalize because it no longer has to correct itself. All it really has to do is only be defensible within the story that is constructed. That's how disproportionate responses get normalized. We're almost close to the end here. That's how retaliation can be reframed as order. And that's how treatment of one person becomes a warning to others. I'm your warning. I'm the guy they nail up onto the city gates. Because when people watch what happens to someone who files, notices, asserts rights, refuses to accept silence, they learn quickly the system actually what they'll tolerate. They'll learn whether their participation is protected or punished. They learn whether their speaking up produces accommodation or escalation, and they'll adjust their behavior accordingly. The more I fight, the more people come out of the woodworks. But in the beginning, so many people were scared, and that's all they ever say. That is the chilling effect. The chilling effect, no value statement's ever going to acknowledge. Nothing Bradley writes is ever going to fix that. It is also where private amplification becomes the most dangerous. Because once narrative is replaced law, repetition becomes the substitute for proof. The more often a claim is made, the less it is questioned. It becomes public knowledge, right? The more widely it's shared, the more legitimate it becomes and appears. The original facts become harder to recover. Not because they disappeared, but because they are buried under layers of framing, like any legend. At that point, correction is no longer the goal, containment is. And the system no longer asks, well, what went wrong and how do we fix it? It starts to ask, ooh, shit, it's like a disease. How do we keep it from spreading? It's everywhere. And that's fundamentally a different question. Because systems that prioritize this containment fact over correction, they're never going to resolve conflict. They're going to externalize it. They move it into places and spaces where it can be managed without obligation. Let's just push that over there. Without record keeping, without consequence, while maintaining the appearance of stability. And that's where the end result of offloading accountability happens. No resolution, no compliance, not safety, normalized harm. The normalization of harm, folks. That's what we got. And once that normalization takes hold, the next step is no longer surprising. It's inevitable. Because when the law stops doing its job, something else always fills the gap. And that's where the story goes next. As we close out here, we're getting towards the end, the chilling effect and how this pattern will suppress participation beyond me, beyond anyone. Like the most serious consequence of everything described so far in this podcast is not what happened to me. That doesn't matter. That only matters to me. It's what happens to all of you and everyone else who's watching. Because your civil right violations rarely announce themselves, right? They don't go, I'm about to violate your rights, sir. They don't usually begin with a mass exclusion or overt bans, right? They didn't immediately start throwing the Jews into the ovens. They had to start little with little signs. They began with signals. They began with patterns. They began with the quiet observation that someone who speaks up is treated differently. Someone who files notices is managed instead of accommodated. Someone who insists on the process becomes the problem rather than the conduct that triggered the complaint. Aaron, you're always so difficult. Maybe if you were less difficult, we'd give you what you want. What? My rights? I have to fight for those? Okay. That's the chilling effect, folks. It doesn't require a single additional rule or an ordinance or a formal prohibition to take effect. It's when residents watch me, a disabled person or a veteran, place a city on formal notice under federal law. Then I followed the prescribed process, and still I was ignored, confronted, and reframed as disruptive. The citizens will learn something really important, right? They learn asserting their rights carries risks. They learn that participation is conditional on if you cooperate. And they learn that cost of speaking may outweigh the benefit of being heard. And I get that. That lesson doesn't stay theoretical. I've gone through it multiple times. It alters your behavior. People choose not to attend meetings, so we have a lack of attendance. People, because they're afraid they're going to get yelled at, or maybe they might get yelled at by Ray for breathing. People choose not to ask questions because, God forbid, you ask a fucking question, right? What, you don't trust us? No, I don't fucking trust you. Look at you. You're liars. People choose not to file records requests because they make you to be a problem, a troublemaker. McCann called me a vexatious requester. He didn't even know what that word meant. Like, this man has a D average in high school, thought he knew what the word vexatious meant. He couldn't even spell the word vexatious. Fucking idiot. He might be able to eat it if it were in a sandwich, or use it to discriminate against if it were black or gay. But whatever. People choose not to challenge the ordinances anymore, or procedures they know are wrong, like unconstitutional gun ordinances, unconstitutional changes to the Parental Responsibility Acts, and borderline unconstitutional changes to the actual curfew laws. And not because they lack concern, but because they have watched what happens to someone that, who refuses to be quiet. They've seen what happens to me. That's how suppression works in modern civic spaces. It's not enforced through bans. It's enforced through examples. See, look what we did to Aaron. And of course, you guys, just like anybody who comes to see the good hanging, stoning, or whatever, you show up like the good mom you are. And yeah, burn him, burn him! He's a witch, he's a witch! When a resident singled out from the dais, when executive officials yell without consequence, when Ray Carrion can be like, did you say something? Did you say something? And Mary and everybody's like, oh, Ray, Ray, Ray. Even you can hear their voices on there. Are intimidated by other, and the intimidation by the other audience members, like Tia Hilton, is tolerated. And when the person, me, who raises legal issues is treated as adversarial by Bradley and others, rather than engaged on the merits, following the rules and the law they say they want me to follow, see something, say something, my ass, you lying fucks, participation is welcome only if it's agreeable. The second you start reporting one of them, they're like, fuck off. Scrutiny is tolerated as long as it's only soft, right? And your rights are acceptable only if they're not exercised too forcefully. That's the message that's reinforced outside City Hall by private platforms. That's repeatedly framed the same individual, me, as dishonest, obsessive, unhinged, and chilling the effect that I accelerate, and they accelerate that effect. People don't need to be told explicitly to stay quiet. They infer it. They infer it when they see the narrative replaces the process. They infer it when they see credibility attacked instead of claims addressed. They infer it when they see escalation met with silence from institutions and amplification elsewhere. And at that point, participation stops being a civic right and starts feeling like a personal gamble. This is especially dangerous for people who already face barriers to participation. Disabled residents like me, elderly residents like your mom, your grandma, residents with limited transportation, anybody that doesn't have a car, residents with language barriers. Because you don't have a car, you can't get to City Hall. Residents who can't speak English, can't hear. Residents who don't have social capital, institutional familiarity, or the time or resources to withstand the prolonged conflict of being beat up by their government, unlike me. For those residents, the lesson is not subtle. If this lesson is how the system treats someone who documents everything, files formal notices, cites the law, and refuses to back down, what will it do to somebody with fewer tools? What will it do to me? I can't speak like Aaron or do like Aaron or write like Aaron. That's what the chilling effect of the ADA was designed to prevent, right? Title II is not only about ramps and microphones. It's about equal participation in civic life without fear of retaliation, intimidation, or exclusion. Same bullshit Bradley was trying to throw out there about his little letter tonight, right? We respect everyone's ability to participate, but you don't. Because when a city's conduct makes participation predictably hostile or unsafe for a disabled person, and when that conduct's left uncorrected as it was with me, the harm extends far beyond the individual who filed the notice. I mean, Bradley himself engaged in the behavior. And then it reshapes the environment. Everyone thinks, well, disabled people don't matter. Fuck you, Aaron, right? Everyone, Tia, Tucker, oh, yeah, they just brush over my disability. Fuck that guy. Right? We support veterans and disabled veterans, just not that one. Fuck that guy. Now, it turns public meetings into deterrence rather than forums. It converts transparency into spectacle. It teaches silence as a survival strategy. Why would you say something when you're going to get bashed? And once silence becomes rational, right? It's good to be quiet. Democracy suffers quietly. That's why these value statements are not going to fix the problem. That's why Bradley's statement doesn't do shit. This is why the optics cannot repair it. This is why the narrative management is so coercive and corrosive. Because the damage is not limited to reputation, mine or otherwise, or my discomfort. The damage is civic withdrawal. People are not going to engage. People stop showing up. People stop asking. People stop trusting that the process will protect them. And I'm an advocate that tells them that, so when they see me fail, they know they can't succeed. And when participation drops, accountability weakens. When accountability weakens, power concentrates. And when power concentrates without scrutiny, abuse becomes easier, not harder. That's the real consequence here. That's the real consequence of what's happening here. Not whether you like me or believe me. I don't give a fuck. Watch me, like me, love me, believe me, don't. Not whether a podcast gets views. I like that you view me, but if you don't view me, you don't. I can only put the content out. I can lead you to the water, but I can't make you drink. Not whether officials are feeling criticized or loved. All I can do is tell you whether the next person decides it's safer to stay home than to take a seat in the chambers and risk becoming the next example. That's the chilling effect. And once it takes hold, reversing it requires more than just statements. It requires visible correction, meaningful accommodation, and a clear signal that participation is protected and not punished, and it'll never be punished. Anything less is not neutrality. It's deterrence. All right, folks, this brings us to our final thought. And I'm going to... This one's a little deep. Attention becomes a tell, and law matters more than opinion. I want to be clear. One thing before this ends. Clarity matters more than tone, facts, more than my feelings, your feelings, our feelings. I don't care what the Madhouse podcast says about me. I don't care what Tucker says. I don't care. Whether you like me or dislike me, mock me, criticize me, talk about me at all. Show videos of me drug across the floor with pictures of Looney Tunes around me. Make me the woe of all of their fucking problems. Discuss videos that aren't even about them. Give me extra talk, extra likes, extra clips. Do it. Cool. I don't dislike them. And I don't care if they dislike me. They're entitled to their opinions. It's America. They're entitled to commentary. It's America. They're entitled to say almost anything they want about public issues. And I've never fucking argued otherwise. Not once. Not one time. They are absolutely a podcast that brings information to other people out there. What they've done for Amber is amazing. Saw her wearing that fucking sweater the other day from the podcast. And I was like, ugh. How can I honestly, Amber's awesome. Like, how can you not love her for her resilience? How can you not love her for what she's been through? How can, it's got to be tough being her. She gets calls from everyone. Everyone wants her to be on their podcast. Everyone wants something from her. And I don't need to tell her story. I don't want it for clicks. I love underdog stories, but she's wearing this Madhouse podcast sweater. I'm like, God, it's like you hate me. And I don't dislike these guys. They're everywhere with me. They use me as their rock. How about this? How about you just don't talk? Get your clicks on someone else. I mean, Amber should have been your clickbait, not me. How did Amber not become your clickbait? After you ran that story with her, I should have never been mentioned again. You should have been hammering her. But no, you heard me talk about your boy, Scotty. That's what you guys got to do. I got a whole little section over here on Scotty and all his bullshit, but I'm not going to get into that because that's not for tonight. So what's possible to ignore, however, is how much these people all seem to care about yours truly. They care enough to bring my name up repeatedly across the board, not just Madhouse, everyone. They care enough to recycle an incident long after they claimed it was settled. I'm going to recycle it because it's never been settled for me. They care enough to clip my podcast, rebroadcast my voice, replay my words, and use my likeness across multiple episodes, shorts, and platforms. Thank you, by the way. Remember, if you found this by one of their shorts or whatever, or you find this, go to www.aaronknapp, AARONKNAPP, unplugged, UNPLUGGED.com. But hey, they do that because of their own admission. It sells. They know it. I know it. Other people know it. Aaron Knapp, my name sells. You put my name in a hashtag and it sells. I should hashtag Aaron Knapp everything. They talk openly about views. They compare engagements, mine to theirs. They frame relevance as numbers. They explain without realizing exactly why my name keeps being used. Not because it's necessary, but because it's new. It's because my name advances understanding. Maybe? No, not even that. It's because it performs and gets clicks. Not because I'm smart, not because I'm pretty, not because I'm funny, because my name is polarizing. And that's a fine business strategy. It is. It's a good call. It'll get your numbers up. It'll take you from 786 followers. Okay, maybe I do know how many you have. To on your YouTube to whatever you need. I'm at 400 something. You got 300 more than me, but I've only been going at it for like 6 months. That's fine if you want it as a business strategy. If you're looking to make your podcast your moneymaker, great. Your bar should be. Once your strategy crosses, though, into repeated use of my name, my likeness, and my recorded voice for gain, the conversation stops being about cultural and newsworthy stories and starts being about legal issues. Ohio is not ambiguous on this point, folks. Tucker. Under Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 2741, because I like my numbers. I think it's like 0.2a, commonly referred to as the Ohio Rights of Publicity Statute, an individual, this guy. And I'm building a brand, I'm building my name, and as Joseph Jones will say, don't fuck with my brand. I'm not fucking with yours. In fact, in this podcast, I've given you quite a few hits. Go see Madhouse Podcast. Go check out anything Madhouse does about Aaron Knapp, good, bad, or ugly. No exposure is bad exposure. I'm not in jail. They're not in jail. They haven't broke the law. I haven't broke the law. Tucker's just trying to run a business. And he is trying to get likes. And he is trying to run a podcast. And he is trying to be well liked. And I get that. I'm doing the same thing right now. Although I'm not trying to be liked. I'm trying to be heard. I don't need you to like me. I need you to hear me. He wants to be liked because he's a bar owner. He has to be. He can't go full force on anyone if he wants his bar to succeed. If you attack all Democrats, you get in trouble. Attack all Republicans, you get in trouble. So, no, I get it. He's had a lot of people. And I'll give him props, too. He invited me on his show before the end of the election. He's not a disrespectful guy. He's not a rude guy. He's not mean overall. He just made a choice to run me as his clickbait. I get it. I'm pretty. But come on, bro. Like, let me go. I'm not going to continue to fight with you. Although you might think otherwise when you get that letter. But that's not me. That's my attorney. Okay. Like at some point, you have to recognize, even if you acknowledge all of the things you said, Aaron didn't want to leave, Aaron did this, Aaron did that, you're still stuck with, you fucked me up for words. Excessive force matters. So, and you keep using my shit. So specifically under RC 2741.02A, that's the one I was looking for, it provides that a person may not use any aspect of another individual's persona for a commercial purpose without prior written consent. Commercial purpose under RC 2741.01B is not limited to direct advertising. It includes use that is intended to promote, advertise, or solicit the purchase of products, merchandise, goods, services, or to increase exposure, engagement, or economic benefit tied to a platform or enterprise. Increased views, increased subscribers, increased reach, and increased monetized potential for all fall squarely within that definition. These are exceptions for news reporting, right? There are them. Like if it was just news, when you first reported it and you put it online, it was kind of a dick move, but it was still news, right? Here's this guy, he's running for council, just like you did with the money, with the voting bag from across the street. I was okay with that. I addressed it. I said, hey, I fucked up. Shit happens. People beat me up, whatever. But you guys kept running with it, just like the Chronicle. You guys kept using it, riding and beating that horse until it was dead. And that doesn't recover repeated broadcasting of my podcast clips or my likeness as a recurring content stripped out of the original context used to anchor your episodes or drive your reaction or generate your engagement. Commentary is one thing, resilience is another. So this is where meaningful distinction becomes incidental reference and systematic reuse. Mentioning my name once to discuss an event, not the same as building a multiple episodes, multiple shorts, and reaction segments over and about a specific individual identity and content. Ohio law recognizes that distinction, and courts look at it as a pattern, purpose, and benefit, not just labels. None of this requires me to be offended, and none of it requires me to feel harmed emotionally or any other way. The statute doesn't ask whether I care. It asks whether it does ask whether my persona is being used without consent for another party's commercial advantage. And if the answer to that question is not determined by what anyone thinks of me, right? It's determined specifically by his conduct. So let me end this whole thing and this bullshit where this actually belongs. I am not asking private platforms to stop talking. That would be uncool. I'm not asking anyone to agree with me. I am not seeking permission to participate in civic life from anyone. I am not intimidated by narrative. I have been consistent from the beginning, never wavering. Follow the law, apply it evenly, respect access, respect boundaries. If a platform like Mr. Tucker's and Madhouse Bar Talk, again, I'm going to give it out again. You got to support the creators. Go see Madhouse Bar Talk. They have a lot of followers. These people go out, 768 followers. A lot, I guess. He gets a lot of hits, though. One of my videos that he did about me one of his videos about me got 21,000 hits. Good job. So that's a lot of hits, folks. And if a platform wants to criticize me and do it without using my recorded voice, great. Take my work, download it like I do, put it in the podcast, use my words. I use your words. But to use my video and my likeness, that's different. That becomes crossing the line. If you want to disagree with my work, you can do so without rebroadcasting my content. If you want to comment on public issues, you can do so without repeatedly using my name and likeness as a commercial hook. I mean, in one of your little shorts, you got my video and your video present. That's not okay. The fact is that it does not choose those options. Will tell you everything you need to know about what actually matters, right? I don't need to defend myself against clickbait. Clickbait defends itself by its own repetition. I don't need to respond to every narrative. Narratives collapse when the law, record, and pattern are placed side by side, as I've done. Sunlight is not retaliation, folks. Documentation is not obsession, and boundaries are not censorship. The story was never about whether people talk about me. The story was about whether institutions and platforms respect the line between commentary and exploitation, between narrative and obligation, and between what sells and what is lawful. The line still exists, and whether it's respected going forward is not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of law. I don't care in the grand scheme what you think, what you say. Go check out these other news platforms, these local ones. Check out the views other than mine. Check out Lorain Daily. Check out, the Chronicle. Check out the Journal. Check out these other Substacks. Check out other podcasts. Educate yourself. Learn. Know. Just know where you're at. And enjoy life. That being said, folks, law enforcement, you be lawful, not awful. Everybody else out there, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you guys tonight. It's getting late, so, it's about 2 hours in, so we got 5 more minutes left. We're just going to say goodnight. Thank you very much for tuning in, and you guys make it a wonderful evening.
No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys. Broadcasting without permission. We don't ask. We lift the curtain and we drop the mask. Unplug with nap. Yeah, we cut through the noise. No script, no leash, no polished decoys.